Jack's snack. Identify your most frequently heard objections and then overcome them in advance. Build a collection of these and create your own sales playbook. Chapter 12. Honest. How is being honest different from having integrity? I had to ask myself that question as I was writing this book. For me, honesty is telling the truth when it needs to be told. It is a component of integrity. Integrity, to me, is creating a life that is aligned with your core spiritual values. Essentially, a commitment to what you believe is true. When it comes to honesty, or telling the truth, one often sees two different approaches, I believe. There is a school of thought that suggests that a good feeling should permeate the truth, regardless of the good or bad news. My mother, on the other hand, can be brutally honest. For instance, one day we were at my parents' house and my mother received a flower arrangement by delivery. When she unwrapped the flowers, she saw that 3 blooms were broken. She called the florist and had them replace the arrangement. Others would have simply accepted that 3 blooms were broken and thanked the sender. My mother responded to her saying, "Someone paid good money to send this flower arrangement. I want them to get what they paid for." You always know where you stand with an honest person. At the same time, you may find that you experience more open conflict with an honest person. Conflict is the engine of all relationships, so honest conflict can only further your relationships. Lies by omission can feel like they're not so bad, but these failures to tell the truth when it's needed can be as damaging or more damaging than a spoken lie. When people hear me speak, I want them to tell me if I missed the mark. That is the only way that I know to grow and to do a better job. I don't always expect agreement, but I do expect candor. I want to challenge you to take the risk of being unpopular when the truth needs to be told. This book is about relationships, not popularity. Honesty is freedom for you and those around you. It is freedom to grow and develop as human beings and to grow and develop your business. Going within. Investment advice. After we started our firm on October 1st, 1995, I knew that relationships were important, so I started a networking campaign in San Antonio to meet people and become better known. It's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you. I had to become better known in our community, so I began attending social events, chamber events, all kinds of events. I adhered to Jeffrey Gitomer's 50 butt rule. If there were 50 butts in a room, mine was one of them. I carefully thought about my goals and then went looking for someone who could help me accomplish them. Are you picking up on a theme here? It was all about me. Me. I was looking for our next victim. My 4 words of self-talk were, who can help me? If I saw a person in a suit, I'd start a conversation. I just looked for prosperous business professionals. It was a narrow and short-sighted way to network, and selfish. And did I mention selfish? I was being selfish, and that was the attitude that I conveyed. Despite all of my work, I was being unattractive to the people around me. Naturally, I did not build strong, positive relationships. After a while, I realized from my lack of success that I was just posing. Ouch! My self-esteem took a hit. I had to be honest with myself. I looked in the mirror and said, I'm a hypocrite and a poseur. If I can't do a better job of networking. After several months, I was getting less and less confident about building a business based on networking. One day it hit me. I was 1 word off in my self-talk, and I changed 1 word. Suddenly, instead of asking, who can help me, I began asking, who can I help? I surmise that if I can help enough people get what they want, chances are that I'll get what I want. After all, one of the best, Zig Ziglar, rest his soul, said as much himself. I became consumed with helping people get what they wanted. Sometimes I would call a banker, or perhaps I would float a resume, or send someone contact information. I was always on the lookout to find ways that I could help other people. That's where my success actually began. I began receiving referrals, benefits, and rewards that were too numerous to count. All along, I helped others without any expectation of a return favor. In fact, some of my benefits just came to me independently because I had just made myself more attractive to the world. In order for me to be happy, in order for me to be successful in sales and in life, I had to be honest with myself. I had to admit that I was a self-centered person that was going nowhere fast. Then I had to begin giving from my heart. That is the only way that leads to ever-expanding success. When I changed my strategy from being an interesting person to an interested one, I began to attract business and benefits like manna from heaven. I will struggle with my selfish tendencies. To this day, I am truly a work in progress. Reaching out. Trainwreck Jack. When you're in a relationship with someone, anyone really, there are two general areas of conversation: your relationship and everything else. Some people go through life without having many conversations that are actually about their relationships. Being able to bring up the relationship and discuss it without being emotionally charged around it is important to the life of the relationship. When it comes to honesty with other people, the two most tempting forms of dishonesty are lies of omission and the failure to speak about the problem in the relationship. Eventually, one of these two things will end the relationship. I have seen partnerships dissolved when parties realize that they haven't been honest with each other. You may see one of your business relationships end because of some level of dishonesty, but you move on and develop other relationships and you think to yourself, that's behind me. Wrong! When you leave a relationship because of honesty issues, that experience is your constant companion in one way or another. It's out there, bad will. Your community absorbs it and sends it back to you. When you most need to establish trust with a potential client or partner, your past will come bubbling up. As kids, we used to say, lies can't hide. Many people don't want to rock the boat. They don't like to feel uncomfortable, and so they aren't being honest with each other or with themselves. Many of us are settling for a mediocre relationship because we don't want to take the risk of open conflict. Ultimately, we could end up losing everything. Making no decision is, in reality, often the worst decision. You may wonder how I came about my wisdom on the subject. I came about it the hard way. The year 2000 found me in business with a young man named Clint Swindoll. Clint was younger than I, and I had acted as a kind of mentor to him as we built a sales consulting practice together. Eventually, Clint wanted to separate and begin working for himself as a professional speaker. We agreed that I would buy him out in the summer of that year. Early in the year, I suspected that the world was moving to more web-based training from traditional classroom training. I saw successful companies offering e-learning, web-based learning. I thought maybe I should try to align my company with a company that does web-based training. I noticed an article in the San Antonio Business Journal featuring a company called Bold Minds. A man named Kirk Cadell was principal of this company, outlined in the Business Journal as the future of training. I approached him and decided that we should talk about combining our resources. He started talking, and the more we talked, the better the idea of merger sounded. The first mistake I made was not being honest with my partner, Clint Swindoll, at the time. I did not mention to him that I was involved in this merger discussion with Bold Minds. Clint and I had an agreement that we would both work part-time in the business and on other projects, so we split ownership and went out to find our own projects. His projects had to do with becoming a recognized keynote speaker, and my projects centered on training. I was greedy. I wanted to keep the deal from Clint so that I didn't have to split the profits with him when I bought him out. So I chose not to tell him. I began secret talks with Bold Minds, framing a joint venture, a joining of equals. I would be the CEO and Kirk would be the president. Bold Minds and Next Step Solutions would merge. As we were progressing in our talks, I kept it quiet. In August, just before Labor Day, I bought out Clint, At the end of our toast at the Cigar Club in San Antonio, we hoisted our beer toasting the transfer of ownership. As Clint signed the stock agreements over to me and I signed the check, Clint was happy and I was happy. I was especially happy that he didn't have a clue what was going on with Bold Minds. I thought I had gotten away with something. In October, I went up to the board of Bold Minds and presented a plan for the merger of Next Step Solutions and Bold Minds. At the beginning of the year 2000, .com stocks were going through the roof. By the second quarter, the tide was changing for internet firms. Bold Minds was an internet company, and the board of directors began to see the .com bubble burst. The board had felt much more comfortable with the merger idea in February than they did in October. In principle, our two firms acted as if we had already merged, but no actual agreement had been signed. Kirk and I proceeded with our new business plan. We started merging customers and blending offices. I moved my office to the Fine Silver Building in downtown San Antonio on October 1st. We blended staffs, and customers then planned to blend stock options at year's end. Around the 1st of November, Kirk and I had an appointment to talk to a major client in Las Vegas. This client was a multinational marketing company. I was excited about the deal and anxious to proceed, but I got to the airport and Kirk was nowhere to be found. I tried to call Kirk, but I couldn't get him. Time passed. I arrived in Las Vegas and began my meeting with the client. Still no Kirk. Finally, I called Kirk's wife's cell phone, only to learn from her that he was at the office. Little did I know that Kirk did not tell me that the board voted against the merger of our companies. Kirk didn't tell me Thursday night before I flew out Friday. He waited until I was in Las Vegas, looking bad, and he still didn't have the nerve to tell me. This vote by the board of Bold Minds was a devastating turn of events for my solely owned company. I had invested thousands of dollars and hours at the very time when Kirk and the Bold Minds board were having second thoughts. I consulted my attorney, and he told me that I had a legitimate lawsuit, but that I wouldn't have a friend left in town. Besides, he added, it would take years to collect the money. I was dishonest by omission with my partner, Clint, by not telling him the truth about my meetings with Bold Minds. Kirk was dishonest with me by omission. I reaped what I had sowed, and I learned the honesty lesson in stereo. I chose not to proceed with the lawsuit. The next step. Sales is a career that is fraught with subtle opportunities to be dishonest. Old salesman joke, do you know how to tell if a sales rep is lying? Their lips are moving. It is a frequent complaint among customers that it was very easy for them to get into a deal and very difficult for them to get out. If your customers trust you, they will think that you are honest and they will take your advice. I suggest that you do not abuse this trust. Often I hear of clients saying, I could have dealt with that if you would have just told me. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Act as if every encounter is either a first or a last encounter with that client. Do you have a document that explains in clear English what dependencies are involved in making a deal with you? Does this document also explain how the client can exit the deal? If you don't have this document, have one written that is short, easy to read, and in print that is at least 12-point. With this in hand, make it a practice at every contract signing to give the document to your client and to read it out loud with them. Did this exercise cause you to make some changes in your life? If so, I'd like to hear about it. Send me an email telling me what happened at jack@lifesasalescall.com. Building block of successful sales. When you open a new relationship, that client gets a new ambassador, you. What is more, that firm becomes an integral component of your near strategy, network of existing economic relationships. Said another way, by mutual decree, you can open doors for each other, provide warm introductions, and refer business back and forth without the burdened overhead of another sales rep. Think about it. Doesn't near beat far, firing at random, any day of the week? Absolutely. Aside from the value they receive for their investments in you, nothing endears a client to you more than your enthusiastic testimonials about their business. Testimonials, you say? That would mean that I was their client or customer. Exactly. Become your client's crusader. Obviously, this isn't always possible, but when it is, do it and then rave about their service or product to the people in your network. Today's social media options facilitate this process. Between Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or a myriad of other options, it is possible to become your client's crusader and sharing the success of their business, such as marketing training, knowledge of new markets, and contacts. Whatever your expertise, ask yourself, how can our skills assist my client in growing their business? Gather the brochures and market literature on your client's products, as well as a number of their business cards. Ask them to email you PDFs of their product service sheets for you to save and forward. Display these and hand them out to the people that you meet and know each day. Be sure to check with them to discover any new products or services they might be offering. Your open willingness to help your client will be received with deep appreciation. Referrals are the lifeblood of most companies, just as they are for you. As you give, you shall receive. Make it your goal to send your client at least one referral a month. This may not always work for you, but if you set your intention on this goal, you will ultimately send your client business. You may have the opportunity to buy public stock in your client's company. Some clients respond warmly when you extend your hand of friendship by taking them to a game, to a show, or to hear a popular speaker pertinent to their field. It takes creative initiative to be in a relationship. You have to think of varied and unique ways of building bridges between you and them. It better feel like more than just work for you. At this point, I am going to assume that you have found a way to mirror affinity to your client and that you genuinely like them and they like you. As you deepen your relationship with them, you are actually enriching your life and having fun. What if you are a woman and your client is a man, or vice versa? This goes back to our integrity and communication skills. Include spouses. If there is not a spouse on one side or the other, be professional and continue to maintain and deepen your relationship. The more that we can create community, regardless of marital status, race, religion, or gender, the more successful we will be in business and in life. Studies show that diversity in business groups increase profits. It's harder to create and maintain a diversity program, but the efforts pay dividends. Did I mention increased profits? I say this because as much as we all pay lip service to creating affinity with individuals and groups that are not our own, many of us find that we really don't ever stray far from our comfort zone. You know what a comfort zone is made of, that a comfort zone is made of silly putty. I'm dating myself again, don't you? It's as pliable and as open to new cultures and personalities as you are. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable for a period of time. Your discomfort will quickly pass. Be secure in yourself enough to invest yourself in knowing and being with people who are very different from you, or whose lifestyles are some trouble for you to accommodate. Put yourself out in order to get to know someone else. Give first and get second. When you do this, you open up new markets. You become a role model and you deepen and grow your relationship with yourself, the source of your success.